You're listening to Oilersnation Radio, a member of the Nation network of podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. 1 hour straight hockey talk with Dan, Rick, Tyler, and Bag Milk starts now.
Ding dong. Hello. Oilersnation Radio episode 160 on Bag Milk here with Tyler Remchuk, Rick, and Zach Lang. We've got an hour of hockey talk coming for you just like Mariah said we would. First, I got to say shout out to Sherwood Ford the Giant. Follow them on Twitter at Sherwood Ford and on Instagram at Sherwood Ford _ the Giant. It is time to get your vehicle serviced. It is now October 1st. The leaves are falling. The seasons are changing. Make sure that you are not caught for the winter. Our friends at Sherwood Ford are there to help you. Check them out in beautiful Sherwood Park, Alberta. Mr. Yaremchuk, what do you got for a Giant question this week?
Well, we are now a week into the Oilers preseason schedule. So the Sherwood Ford Giant question of the week is this: what's been your biggest takeaway from week one of the Oilers preseason?
Who wants to jump in first here? Zach, you are guest spotting in for the Nation Dan. We're going to mention him in a minute here on the podcast. Who you got? Biggest storylines from the preseason for you, sir?
I mean, I think the biggest storyline for me right now has got to be Zach Hyman, Connor McDavid, and Jesse Puljujarvi. Obviously, we've only seen them once. You know, they played together against Seattle, but they were absolutely dominant. And yeah, sure, it's Seattle's, B squad that the Oilers were up against. But man, that trio was absolutely electric to watch. And I think it's really good news for the Edmonton Oilers moving forward this season. Those three guys are going to be huge players, and it's going to be really fun to see them do their thing.
I'm going to talk about Hyman, McDavid, Puljujarvi a little bit more later because the chemistry they're developing, it's again, small sample size. It's the preseason. It's all that. I get it, but I want to talk about them at length a little bit later. I agree with you, Zach. Rick, what do you got? Biggest preseason storylines so far?
One of the ones that has me the most excited is our depth goaltending. Anybody outside of Smith and Koskinen was a big question mark. I think Konovalov has shown that he's worthy of where he is, and he's worthy of a little bit of potential, as is Skinner. I think Rodriguez looked pretty good too. So I think that our depth at goaltending has been a bit of a bright spot for me.
The goaltending is interesting too, because the game against Winnipeg the other night, Konovalov, what did he allow, Zach? 3 or 4 or something like that? But he allowed 4, but the game would have been well out of hand had it not been for Konovalov. And the Oilers didn't dress an NHL lineup, whereas the Jets had a lot of their shooters in. So I agree on the depth on goaltending. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Konovalov does in his first preseason game or season, I should say, with the Bakersfield Condors. Mr. Yaremchuk, preseason storylines.
I like Zach. I was really impressed with Zach Hyman in his first game. Granted, they're playing an American League team for the most part. But it's clear there's some chemistry here, and he's going to be a fan favorite real quick. It's not going to take a lot of time here in Edmonton. So as the preseason goes on, I'm really excited to see how Hyman, McDavid, and Puljujarvi continue to click. And you got to give some love to Lamborghini Perlini in this segment as well. I mean, the guy had to perform if you wanted to get a job, right? You look at that group with guys like him and Shore and Turris and Benson's in that mix as well, and Colton Sevier. And Perlini's been the only one to really jump off the page. And I don't think anyone who's competing for a spot has been bad by any stretch, but Perlini's been the only one to jump out and make you be like, damn, he clearly wants to make this hockey team. He shoots well. He's a massive body. He moves well.
How big a guy is he?
He's got to be 6'4", right?
Is he? Because he doesn't move. He moves better than a big man. That's for sure. Because I'll tag in here too while you're looking that up.
6'3".
My preseason storyline that I obviously got to talk about is Lamborghini Perlini. The guy is shooting for a spot. He's on a 2-way deal with the Oilers. And I don't know anybody who's battling for a spot on that fourth line that has outperformed him, or you can say has outperformed him. I know we had it in the mailbag a couple of weeks ago. If Josh Archibald isn't around, who's going to fill that fourth line or right wing spot? And a lot of us were I don't know, maybe Kyle Turris. And Turris had a couple of points the other night, but he's not sticking out the way that Perlini is, And I know Perlini's a lefty, but having a guy that can score, has done it, in the NHL before. He has a 17 and a 14 goal season under his belt. I mean, those were years ago, 5-6 years ago, but he's an interesting dude. Who knows what happened in the time since he had those 14 and 17 goal campaigns with the Coyotes, bounced over to Europe last season, but he's interesting. He's definitely making a bid for a job and probably doing a better job of it than some of the others. Zach, what do you think about Lamborghini Perlini?
I mean, yeah, it's exciting to see what he's doing right now. I think it's great. Obviously, I think he's a guy that will challenge for a spot on the Oilers roster here. But then again, let's not forget about the preseason that Ty Ratty had here in Edmonton a number of years ago, right? I mean, it's the same sort of a situation. A journeyman player who comes to town, plays with the big club, and he rode the coattails of McDavid, and I can't remember what he scored in that one preseason, but it was something ridiculous, like 10 points in 5 games or something wild like that. So I'm not holding my breath that Perlini is going to be the savior of this franchise, but hey, you know what? There were some things you saw that were nice in his game. He's got a great shot. He's got a wicked release. He's obviously a guy who has scored a bit in the NHL in the past, and hey, if he can come in and do that for the Oilers in a third or fourth line role, that's a big win for the club.
And the thing is, like, Ratty lit it up that year with McDavid, and we had him slated into be on the top line and all that. Perlini's doing it playing with the guys he'll play with in the year in a fourth line role as well. Granted, again, his biggest game was against basically American League competition. I'm going to bring that up a bunch of times, but regardless, still impressive.
But hey, to be fair, they did have Chris Drieger in net that night too, right? So, that's a National Hockey League goaltender. It's not like, they were going up against some nobody AHLer there.
And the thing about Perlini too is the goals he is scoring those are NHL finisher goals. Those aren't just like little drips and drabs that are bounced in off a skate or something like that. Although, again, if you're listening to this and you're yelling at your phone or your radio or wherever you're listening to the podcast, we know it's the preseason. Zach already mentioned Ty Ratty. I can think of Jesse Joensuu had a hell of a preseason a while back. I can think of the years that Anton Lander came in and shot the lights out in the preseason. I was at a preseason game when Magnus-Paajarvi Svensson scored a hat trick. I know all of these things, but we're talking preseason. Game 4 tonight against the Seattle Kraken is underway. So what are we going to talk about? Of course, we're excited about the preseason. Rick, you've seen a lot of players come and go like Brendan Perlini. What are your thoughts on what he's done so far?
I don't know what it is, but I think I'm trying to temper my expectations right now. We've been hurt a lot. We've seen a lot of guys. We've gotten on board with a lot of guys quite early, and things have kind of fizzled out. If he can keep playing like this, he's definitely a top 14. Is he going to keep popping the points at the rate he is? Probably not. But we got to keep going here. This is game 4 out of 8, I think it is, right? I like the fact that the guys that are really needing to prove the most are getting the most ice time. So guys that we kind of need to see who exactly they are getting the most ice time out there. So let's keep going. We've got a couple more games to go. If he can keep it up, then things are looking good, but we've seen things fizzle out before, so I can't get too excited too fast.
It's weird because we've talked about the preseason a lot, how it's too long, blah, blah, blah. I know this isn't for us. It's for evaluation. It's for the players and all that. I get it. It's hard not to get excited. I like seeing Oilers fans happy on Twitter. The other night when the Kraken played, the Oilers had they had their top 6 playing, looked really, really good. And it's just fun. It's fun. So I want to know what you guys think. If you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh, you guys missed, Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen went a couple games without allowing a goal, or Cody Ceci is getting turnstiled if you're John Scott. I want to know what you think. So hit us up on social media at ON Radio Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. We want to involve you. So I'll read a bunch of your answers out if they come in next week on the podcast. I just want to know what your preseason storylines are looking like so far.
The other thing too, like last year, the Oilers scored 183 goals in the 56 game season. That had them 7th in the NHL. They were 5 goals away from being a top 5 team. And the only players who were in double digits for even strength goals last year were McDavid at 24, Draisaitl and Nurse each had 15. Puljujarvi had 13. And that was it for double digits. And now you look at the team this year. Well, one, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nurse, and Puljujarvi, I could definitely see them doing that again. And can Nugent Hopkins bounce back? And now you have Zach Hyman in the mix. Can Yamamoto bounce back? Fogel's a 10 goal at even strength candidate as well. I mean, does a guy like Ryan McLeod find his scoring touch? Like, even forget Perlini. It's just really easy to look at this forward group and just keep getting really excited. I know I've been hyping them up for a while, and I argued with John Scott about this, but I think they can be a top 5, top 3 scoring team in the NHL. And it's not that much of a stretch when you look at how much they scored last year with such little depth.
If you haven't listened to that, by the way, if you haven't listened to that episode of Real Life with John Scott, I think that was that on Monday, Tyler?
Yeah, that was on Monday.
Go back and listen to that, because hearing Tyler argue with John Scott about how good the Oilers are, it'll warm your soul up a little bit. Tyler was not backing down from John Scott, nor should he. God bless you for it. So go back and listen to that episode of Real Life if you haven't heard it already. And again, if you've got a preseason storyline you're watching that you're looking at, I want to hear about it. So hit us up at ON Radio Podcast. And in the meantime, while you're thinking, maybe you need some food for the temple, hit up our friends at DoorDash. It's Friday. You don't want to cook. I don't want you to cook. You probably can't cook anyway, unless you're a soup guy like Zach, in which case do your thing. But if you're not, order in some food and use the promo code ONRadioDD. ONRadioDD. That'll get you 25% off your order and free delivery. That's your first order. So, sorry?
I was going to say, and that's not all, because we have another promo code, because DoorDash is teaming up with Oodle Noodle.
Delicious.
You can get $7 off your order of $30 or more when you use DoorDash and Oodle Noodle. All you have to do is use the promo code Oodle2021. And here's the other thing. One, load up an order, $30 of Oodle Noodle, then you're saving the $7. You're eating good for like 4 days with that kind of order. Also, you can use this promo code up to 10 times between now and December 31st. Come on.
I used it on Wednesday. I ordered a lot of Oodle Noodle on Wednesday and I got $7 off my order. Saved me a few shekels. I got 9 more times to use it, and I will use it all 9 times. I promise you. All right, let's move on, gentlemen, past the preseason storylines to something that Zach mentioned. I guess it's another preseason storyline, if I'm being honest. But you know what? McDavid-Hyman-Puljujarvi, their short time together against the Kraken so far, man, they looked good. Again, I know preseason, Riley Shane was the first line center, all that shit. I get it. But you know what? If those three can develop chemistry and start figuring out where each other is, and you could tell Connor and Jesse already kind of have that going a little bit from last year. If Zach Hyman can figure out where Connor needs him to be, this line is going to be one of the best in the NHL. And I don't think that's me being hyperbolic on that either. I think this line has the potential to do amazing things. This isn't Ty Ratty slotting in beside Connor and us hoping that something can happen. He's got 2 legitimate wingers that aren't named Leon Draisaitl beside him for the first time in forever. I want to start with Zach, since you brought up the topic. What do you think of this trio? And do you think that I'm overestimating their ability to be one of the NHL's best lines?
No, I mean, I think anytime you have Connor McDavid on a line, it has a chance to be the best line in the NHL. You add in a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi, and we got to see so much last year from Puljujarvi, taking a major step forward in his game. And we saw that chemistry between Puljujarvi and McDavid last year. So that was tremendous to see. And then you add in a guy like Zach Hyman, who has all of the experience in the world playing with elite level players in Toronto, alongside, guys like Matthews and Tavares and Marner. Hyman is going to come in here with that experience of knowing how to play with elite level players, because at the end of the day, it's different playing with a guy like Connor McDavid than it is playing with a guy like Kyle Turris, is your sentiment, to say the least. So I don't think it's an understatement to say this could be the best line in the NHL this season.
Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, best line in the NHL, I think Connor McDavid's there, right? So it obviously has the chance to be that. And it's just really easy to get excited. I kind of went through my thing there, hyping up all the guys on this roster who can score multi-goals. But I mean, let's just look at Puljujarvi and Hyman. I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility to think that those two could combine for 50 this year, 25 a pop, or 30 for one, 20 for the other, right? Like, I don't think that's the most insane thing to say.
I don't think so either.
Absolutely.
I think it's completely
No,
possible.
definitely.
Rick, I was going to say, Rick, you were at the game against the Kraken. So I want to ask both you and Tyler what it was like being at Rogers Place. But first, I want to get your thoughts on seeing that line together for the first time in person.
Well, we already know that Hyman and McDavid worked out all summer together, right? So I think they would have found a little bit of chemistry doing that. They probably would have worked on a lot of things that they're going to be using going forward. Poole, when it comes to the big man there, he just has to skate. He has to get around out there, and
he looks quick.
And I think he does, right? He's only getting bigger. He's only getting stronger. He's filling out. He's going to be impossible to knock off that puck. He's a big body, the long reach. He knows what he's doing. He's got the offensive abilities. We watched it last year. We've seen it in the previous levels of hockey he's played. This is a line that I have a lot of excitement for, and I think they could do a lot of damage.
I think they could do a lot of damage, and like just watching Zach Hyman, I know I've read a lot about what he did in Toronto, and I talked to Caroline Chouette about what kind of player Zach Hyman is and what the Oilers are getting from him. But watching him go in and fish out pucks and be relentless on the forecheck, again, in those small sample size, but I just can't imagine a scenario where he's doing that, fishing out pucks to Connor, and it doesn't boost everyone scoring. This is a guy that we haven't really had in the lineup, and the Oilers kind of have two of them now in their forward group, with both Hyman and Warren Fogle are relentless forecheckers. So Zach, I want to ask you, do you think having a guy like Hyman, obviously his skill, he can play with skilled players, but do you think that's going to up Connor McDavid's production because of the way he plays?
Yeah, it very well could. Like, I think that's a great way to look at it, right? We know Hyman is a big body. He's a strong forechecker, as you mentioned, too. And I think something that's going to be interesting, too, is like what we saw from Puljujarvi last year. We saw Puljujarvi playing that role of the heavy forechecker a lot. And on top of that, Puljujarvi is actually showing that he can be quite a defensively responsible player as well, which is really interesting to see. So, maybe it takes a little bit of that pressure off Puljujarvi to be such a heavy forechecker, and allowing him to focus more on some defensive responsibilities too.
I like all of that. A little bit more two-way. Oh, big sneezes from Zach. Those big sneezes. Excellent muting though, Zach.
I had to cut my take short so that I could get those sneezes out.
That was pro level muting there. Tyler appreciates that for his post-game editing. All right. Moving on a little bit, sticking with training camp. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Cornerstone Insurance at cornerstoneins.ca. What I need you to do is head on over there and check out the products that they've got available for your insurance needs, residential, commercial, life insurance, auto, whatever you need, they got it. For 90 years and 4 generations, Cornerstone Insurance has been a family and employee-owned business here in Edmonton. And on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a button, Citizens of the Nation, get yourself a discount. All right, sticking with training.
Can I just say, I love your efficiency today. We're 17 minutes in. You've crushed out 3 of the ad reads we have to do.
Well, you know what?
But in work.
We got lots to talk about. I feel like I listened back to last week's podcast. I didn't think I spaced them out well last week. I thought that towards the end of the podcast, I was crowbarring them in. So this time I wanted to get some people out up front. We got to make sure that we give some love to Sherwood Ford, DoorDash, now Cornerstone Insurance. We got some more coming. Let's get to them. We're sticking with training camp today. Well, interesting addition to training camp today, boys. Duncan Keith made his preseason debut at camp after getting vaccinated. And I got to say, he's not really endearing himself to a lot of Oilers fans online. So I've got some quotes here from Duncan Keith about how he's feeling. Last 2 weeks were not ideal, but he did a lot of good training as best he could to stay ready. All right. Nothing wrong there. Everybody can agree with that. Keith says he feels like he's done a lot to keep his immune system strong and healthy. Okay. Adds it was frustrating to have to take the vaccine to play hockey. My reaction is, oh, peanut. Keith says travel regulations were a big part of his decision to get vaccinated. Okay, makes sense. Didn't want to be trapped in the room, wanted to be able to go play the games in the US. Didn't want to miss about 30 plus. I get all that. Keith also added there should have been more pushback from Players Association to support players who were reluctant to get vaccinated. And I think that was one of the ones that really annoyed Oilers fans, especially when you look at what's going on in the hospital situation here in Alberta. ICUs are almost maxed out. A little bit tone deaf from Duncan Keith to not. Yeah. I don't expect him necessarily to be aware of everything that's going on with the healthcare system in Alberta, but come on, man.
Again, he got the vaccine. So even if he doesn't like it, at the end of the day, if you got it and you're pissed that you got it, at least you finally made the decision to do it. I use the word tone deaf, and that's it for me. It's like, man, someone probably should have said, if there are questions about it, Duncan, just do us as the Oilers a solid and just say you don't want to get into it. And then it's not a story. And then you move on and all the talk's going to be about your play on the ice. it's just annoying that we even have to talk about this. And a veteran guy like Duncan Keith, who should know how the media and how fans and how social media would take stuff like this, he should have just said, I don't want to get into it. Let's talk about hockey, or I'm excited to be playing hockey and I'm going to leave it at that. Like it just felt like an unnecessary quote to throw out there. And yeah,
I was talking to I was just texting back and forth with a couple of the local media guys here in the city. And the consensus I got from them was that, hey, he started out fine being like, hey, you know what? The 2-week quarantine wasn't ideal, but I did my best to stay fit and they said they probably could have left it at that. But it's when he circled back with some of the other stuff that's where he may or may not have gotten himself in trouble, depending on how you look at it. It's like Tyler said, for a guy who's been in the league for 1,000 years, I kind of thought he would have just been like, I got it, whatever. But in Alberta, it's touchy right now, especially with what's going on. So I don't know. It just seemed weird. It seemed weird for a guy that was brought in for leadership and intangibles to go that route. Zach, I know you and I were talking about it on Slack a little bit. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's disappointing, to be honest. And Tyler, I think you make a great point in that, it's creating a story that doesn't need to be there. Duncan, obviously, we can all tell that you weren't elated to get the vaccine, given the fact that you weren't vaccinated. So, it's tone deaf in a province that is undergoing such a major health crisis right now. And it's really disappointing to see somebody, as you mentioned too, Bag Milk, somebody that's been brought in to be a leader and to show leadership. The first comments that he makes to the media in Edmonton, in the preseason is regarding vaccinations and how he feels the NHLPA should have pushed back harder. Well, you know what? Just be lucky that you have a job, because you take a look at a guy like Zach Ronaldo in Columbus, who declined to get the vaccine. And now he's not even going to be playing hockey in North America, because today the Columbus Blue Jackets said that they wouldn't have him playing for their AHL club because they don't want an unvaccinated player around and any other guys in their franchise. So, now Ronaldo's going to be looking for a job overseas, and same thing happened to a defensive prospect, Bode Wild, with the New York Islanders. He came into camp, he was unvaccinated, and we all know how Lou Lamoriello feels about people who don't buy into the team. And now he's playing hockey overseas in Europe, and he's going to be playing in the second Swedish league for probably the foreseeable future. So it's disappointing to see these comments from Keith at the end of the day. And it's really frustrating, especially when you look at what's happening here in this province.
Since Zach brought it up, Jarmo Kekalainen on Zach Ronaldo. I'll just read this quickly. His quote, if you want to see the full thing, Elliot Friedman tweeted out the screenshot of it. But he says, our position has been very clear that our organization is committed to doing everything we can to ensure the health and safety of our players, coaches, staff, and fans. Given the impact COVID-19 continues to have in our communities, we believe the best course of action, given Zach's vaccination status, is to not have him report to Cleveland at this time. While we respect an individual's right to make a personal choice with regards to being vaccinated or not, we have the responsibility to do what we believe is best for our organization. We will honor Zach's contract, but if he wants to pursue any other opportunities to play this season, we will allow him to do so. So that is the Columbus Blue Jackets stance on that. Rick, you've been the most kind of balanced and just not overreacting to a lot of this stuff since it all started. What are your thoughts on the Duncan Keith thing?
Honestly, he got the shot, so why do we care after that? I just think people want to whatever. I look at things differently. He got the shot, story's over, move on.
I think that's fair.
That's what I hoped it would be. But
everybody just wants to yell for other reasons and make things the who cares? Just move on. It doesn't matter. He's got the shot. Who cares? Move on.
Yeah, I understand and I agree with that too, to an extent. But like at the end of the day, the comments are unnecessary from Keith. Like it's unnecessary for him to come.
But you can have a different opinion. He still got the shot. I don't.
Absolutely.
We can have different opinions. I'm not so sure. I don't know exactly where I stand, but I got my shots. That's what it is. Oh
yeah, I'm double vaccinated, and I'm happy to be, right. But like I just think it sends the wrong message for him to come out speaking about it the way that he did in a province where there was a record high 34 deaths the other day. Like I just think it sends the wrong message, and I agree. Like at the end of the day, it's really a non-story, and it really shouldn't need to be a story. But the fact that we have a healthcare system on the verge of collapse here in this province, that's to me what turns it into like a legitimate story.
I'll just wrap it up. We'll move on. Jason Gregor, I think he kind of has a good take on it, that it's how I feel. I mean, I'm with Rick too. He got the shot. So I just wish he would just shut up. The problem is we live now in a time where too many people care about what sports figures say regarding things that they have no education or training in. And this is one of those scenarios. So I think Jason wraps it up quickly. So I'll just move on after this. Keith doesn't have to love the fact that he needed to get vaccinated. What matters the most is that he did. I'd much rather have people say they didn't want to take it, but still took it rather than not at all. Most important is he got the jab. He doesn't need to be elated about it. So we'll end it off. If you want to give your thoughts, again, hit us up, ON Radio Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I mentioned briefly, though, that a couple of boys on this here podcast, Tyler and Rick, both got to go to the game against the Kraken. I just want to know what it was like being back at Rogers Place for the first time in, I don't know, year and 7 months. Rick, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd have to say that's probably closer to, I think, 20 months now. I don't know if I made it in March of 2020, so maybe February, guaranteed one of those 2 months. I felt great, man. I liked walking up the stairs. I liked walking up to the building. I liked being in my seats. I liked chirping everything. There wasn't an aspect of it I didn't enjoy. After the last couple of years of having to watch it only on TV, it was nice to be back out there, and it's nice to know that Tyler wasn't one of the only 6 people allowed in the building, that we were allowed in there too. So take a little bit of that away from him.
Well, that was also hilarious because Tyler was doing a humble brag yesterday on Real Life. He's like, "Oh, I was at Rogers Place." We were just like, "Yeah, you're in the media, we get it." But you also went as a fan with your old man, Tyler. What was your thoughts, just kind of being back at Rogers Place, having a beer, doing things that are just a normal thing to do for the first time in a long time?
Yeah, it was super weird. And I don't want that to come with like any sort of negative connotation. I think the organization did a good job. Like Rick, you can probably agree, getting in and having to show your vaccine stuff added no time to the line whatsoever. Like you were in quick.
As fast as you can make that situation.
Yeah, like it was fine. I there was no point where I was like, oh man, this line is going to suck all year. Like it was just, no, you got in. The lines for concession were like totally normal. I think there were some people who like the masking, like people wearing a mask when they're walking around wasn't great. But at the end of the day, like whenever I'd kind of be like, oh God, there's a lot of people not wearing their mask, or there's just a lot of people here, period. I just kind of reminded myself like, most of the people here are double vaccinated. If not, they've had a negative test. And I honestly think it'd probably be more towards the side of most of the people there are just double vaccinated. So it took me a while to kind of get comfortable being in a room with 14,000 people again. But once like the hockey started and the crowd got going, like the crowd was unreal, man. Like that was a regular season big game crowd. They were really, really good. Once the hockey started, once a couple Let's Go Oilers chants got going, you kind of sat there and you're like, all right, this is going to be like a good year. Things are going to be back to normal.
Even the wave didn't suck. Even the wave, it was fun to be around for the wave.
No,
that's what I was going to ask.
It's been 2 years, man. Even the wave was good.
I was watching the stream, and guys, I just want to know about the vibe at Rogers Place, because watching it on my laptop, it didn't have a preseason feel. It felt like people were having a good time in there.
Oh yeah.
It felt like a regular game. Yeah, it did.
The crowd was really good. And when they scored, like the place went bananas. When McDavid was introduced, the place went bananas. It was awesome.
I just like, so last year, I'm writing about this for my random thoughts article in Oilers Nation this weekend. But last year I tried to convince myself, and I spent the whole year doing it, that the robot fans, oh, it's fine. It's like, it's not the same, obviously, but it's fine. That noise is like, it is what it is. But hearing a real crowd back at Rogers Place cheering in the right spots with no delay between the time something happens on the ice and the time when a guy gets to push a button to make the crowd go up, it was nice. It just adds such a different flavor to watching it. And I missed it. I really did. I missed it.
I'd like them to just make the crowd be quiet for like 10, 15 seconds and go, just so you guys know, this is what it sounded like when you guys weren't here, and just do a little song and just show us what it was like. Cause I'm curious to see what it was like being inside there back when, it was Tyler and his 4 best friends that were the only ones allowed in there. It was the media and that was it. Right. So I want to know what it was like. I want to have the experience. I want to know how much better this is right now.
Tyler, of the 4 of us, you're the only one that could answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, when I posted that video when McDavid got his 100th point of the season, and it was just like, again, the best way to describe it, it's like watching a rec league game at, 10 o'clock at Terwilliger, but it's the best players in the world playing the rec league game, right? Like you heard every pass, every sort of chip against the boards. When the visiting team would score, you'd hear their bench go crazy. And then just to like try to think and put myself back in that spot a few months ago and compare it to what it was like when the Oilers scored in that preseason game, is just like, holy shit, man. Like sports is just so much better with fans, even on TV. Like, I mean, watching the Jays and seeing them back in their home stadium, but also when they took it from 15 to 30,000, the buzz in there is like unbelievable. Watching on TV, it's way different with fans in the building.
Well, even, I mean, in the Jays angle, it was fun watching them interview some of the players after the win over the Yankees, not last night, but on Wednesday. And they were just like, man, it's just a different vibe in here with that many people. Zach, you and I were tier 2 fans at this point. We're only watching. Have you noticed the difference, just kind of watching the stream, of a difference of having fans actually in the building?
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of cool to just see people in the stands. It's exciting. It's exciting that people are finally able to go back and watch hockey games here. So it's hard to tell, especially given that it was it was kind of interesting because it was like the Jumbotron feed of Rogers Place. So you really kind of got to feel and see the people that were, excited to be back in the stands and the fun little contests and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's great to see, and it's awesome for the community as well.
One thing I will say though about the live experience at Rogers Place is this is no fault of anybody's, but it's going to take me some time to get over my Ryan Jesperson related sadness,
Yeah. I mean, having a good in-arena host is one of those things that you maybe don't appreciate enough until you don't have a good in-arena host. And I didn't even really pay much attention to the lady that was doing in the preseason game, because
that's the thing, is that when Jespo hit the screen, he got your attention.
Yeah.
And same thing. And I halfway through the game, I was like, oh shit, I forgot, like these things happen here.
Yeah.
I don't know who but you have to go out and grab people's attention somehow. And
I'm sure once we get used to the new person doing it, that'll come. Like we'll start to get the excitement again, and she'll find her voice and her rhythm. I'm sure there were some nerves as well doing her first game, for sure. But it's just, man, you're right, Bag Milk. It'll take a while to get over not having Jespo there.
It's just what happens. We're creatures of habit. And it was like, I remember when Mark Schultz used to do the in game, and then it went to Jespo and you're like, oh, okay, the guy from Ched is doing it now. Okay. And then you get used to the way he did it. And it's going to take a minute. Jespo, we love you, buddy.
For the record, I did contact someone, and he said he'd do it for free. Mandrick said he would do it for free, but they have to give him a couple beers. So I don't know who's listening. I don't know who's listening right now or where we send that email, but Mandrick said he's in for a couple beers. That's it.
I mean, you've got a couple of phone numbers in your phone there, Rick, that we can get some, we can get the word up. Hello. I'd love to see Mandrick. Oh, even just once, just give him the mic once. All right. Adam Mandrick, you deserve the job. We'll push for you. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll push for you. Well, it's Friday. We're halfway through the preseason after tonight's game, one against Winnipeg tomorrow, but it's gotten me thinking about the actual regular season, which gets me thinking about our new partnership with PointsBet that we announced the other day. PointsBet Canada is going to be the official gambling partner of the Nation Network and dailyfaceoff.com. Tyler, Zach, well, Rick, we're all bettors on this podcast.
Yep.
I know Tyler's got some of the props that we can look at for the upcoming season. I want to get to some of those because I need to talk risky business. I love it.
Is it rude to ask for a promo code for the company? Like, do we get
I'm sure we will once because PointsBet's going to do it the right way, right? Like they're going through and they're getting, it's going to be a part of the new legal single game sports betting in Canada. So you can't bet there yet. You can just go there for the odds, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of promo codes to give away once they're all up and running.
There's going to be a bunch of opportunities, Rick. I've heard some of the plans that they've got for us as we move closer to the single game betting actually coming through in Canada. It's going to be fun.
It's through in Alberta right now. Someone's already done it already.
Play Alberta.
I'm sure there's
government.
I'm sure there's
Play Alberta was.
Fair. I'm sure there's steps for other, but it is already here.
They got to get through. I
don't know the legal
very,
jargon.
very loose understanding is that they've just got red tape to get through to actually be able to get it going.
For sure. It's AGLC stuff.
Whenever that is, it is. But we got props that we can talk about now.
Yes.
Tyler, I love props.
Yes.
I mean, I missed my NFL prop again last night because fuck me, I just can't win anything right now. But maybe I'll have better luck in hockey. Maybe
What'd you take?
I had over 20 points in the first half.
I thought that was gonna be a higher scoring game there. I don't know what happened there.
Bad beat alert. It was like 1 point off for the over too. Like on the total. Like it was like super close.
I'm just not having good luck with my NFL prop. So I'm really hoping that with our friends at PointsBet, they're going to have analysis. They're going to have content. We're going to have a lot at the nation. I'm hoping I can do better in hockey. Tyler, what do you got?
Stanley Cup odds. Let's start with that. The Oilers come in, according to PointsBet, at 25-1 to win the Stanley Cup this year. There are 10 teams above the Oilers in terms of Stanley Cup odds, and a handful of teams also at 25-1. So the Oilers are in a group with Minnesota, Washington, and Dallas. I guess just throw it out there. 25-1 on the Oil, and them being right around Minnesota, Washington, and Dallas. Is that a good spot for them, or are you guys surprised? Did you maybe think they'd be a little higher up?
I mean, I think it's a fair spot for them. There are question marks with the team and the defense and the goaltending and blah, blah, blah. So I imagine that probably affects their cup odds. 25-1 though, you know, I'd put some money on that. I will put some money on that. I do every year. So why wouldn't I? Zach, what are you thinking? 25-1. You like it?
I'd always throw a couple bucks down. You never know what can happen, right? I mean, I think the biggest thing for the Oilers, like the biggest question mark is the goaltending. Like, can the goaltending stay strong for them through the season and into a playoff run? And that's where I may be a little bit cool, but I mean, I think those are pretty solid odds all around.
Yeah, I just think if Mike Smith can stay healthy, I think that's the important part. It's just the old boy's body needs to stay healthy. Before I get to Rick, who's got the best odds?
The best odds, I can rattle them off here. Colorado's at 5-1. Vegas and Tampa are 6-1.
I wouldn't bet on Vegas 6-1. Fuck that.
No. Toronto's 11-1. They're fourth, but that's usually a product of just a lot of people bet on them. Then it goes Bruins, Hurricanes, Panthers, Islanders, Penguins, Rangers, and then the group with the Oilers. I can't believe the Rangers are that high.
Yeah, that's surprising.
And the Penguins won't have Crosby or Gino to start the year. I get that these are Stanley Cup odds. They could always just squeak in, but their division's hard. And I don't think they're even like the Oilers are a lock to make the playoffs. Like they should be, is what I mean, right? Like they're clearly one of the better teams in their division. They shouldn't have a problem getting in. I think teams like Pittsburgh and Florida and New York, they might have a hard time getting into the playoffs, which is why I was surprised to see them above Edmonton.
The Oilers playing the Kraken tonight. So that is where the Kraken listed at on there, Tyler.
The Seattle Kraken are all the way down, or actually not all the way down. They're sandwiched right in between the Blackhawks and Predators. The Kraken are 50-1. And on that topic, one bet that I do like Stanley Cup wise, the Winnipeg Jets are 40-1 to win the Stanley Cup. They got a good goalie. They improved their blue line, and they got a pretty deep forward crew. They've gone on a couple there, or they've won some playoff rounds in the last couple of years. I don't mind the Jets actually at 40-1.
If you're betting on Stanley Cup winners, we want to know who you're betting. So ON Radio Podcast, hit us up, Twitter and Instagram. I want to know where you're betting. What else you got, Tyler?
We can go on to just the Oilers straight up odds to make the playoffs. It's really not even worth betting on them at this point. I lost my place here on my screen, but I think they're $100 would profit you $25.
Nah,
they are minus 400 to make the playoffs.
Nah, that's not worth it. I mean, I think that's money in your pocket, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze on that one. Boys, are you betting on that one?
No, juice ain't worth the squeeze on that one. No way.
Yeah.
No, there's not enough value on it, right? One that I would be interested in seeing is Pacific Division winners, because I imagine Vegas is going to be the favorites there. But like 2 years ago in the Pacific, the Oilers were right behind Vegas.
So you got Vegas at minus 175 and then Edmonton at plus 375.
Ooh. I don't mind that at all.
To win the division plus 375, that's where you go.
Yeah, that's where I go.
That's great value.
Or if you want something a little bit safer, PointsBet has their over under at 99.5 for the year.
99.5.
Yeah.
Playoff cut line is generally what, around 94, 95, somewhere in there?
Yeah.
Roughly, yeah. I'd bet over 99.5.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe.
What else you got?
So we got the points total there. We had odds to make the playoffs. We had the division odds as well. Odds to win the Western Conference as well, they had in there. And that one for the Oilers, they are 9-1. And it was actually 10-1 the other day when I checked, but they're behind only Colorado and Vegas to come out of the West. I like the 375 to win the division, though. I'm not big on Vegas this year. I've said that a handful of times. Yep. I think there is a chance if the goaltending holds, Edmonton's the best team in this division.
Plus 375. I mean, that's just, it's inviting me to bet on that. That's what that is. It's inviting me to bet on it. Again, if you're betting on the Oilers, we're going to have a lot of betting content coming up this year with our friends from PointsBet Canada. Risky business. I used to do a little Instagram live show before the game. That's now going to be an article on the website. So I'm going to be hitting up the boys here on the podcast just to know what they're betting on. I'm going to include them in that article as well, but that's going to be going up on game days for PointsBet Canada. And again, PointsBet, if you're listening to this right now and you have a Twitter account, follow PointsBet Canada on Twitter. They challenged us to get them to 1,000 followers on Twitter. And if we get them there, they're going to donate $1,000 to the charity of our choice. So we want to make that happen. We want to spend PointsBet's money. So go follow them at PointsBet Canada. Cool. All right. It is time now to get to Ask the Idiots for our friends at Buster's Pizza. 11 locations in and around the city. I encourage you to give them a try, whether it's a donair. Boys did a donair review the other a couple of weeks there now. Waz had sauce all over his face. That's how you know it's a good donair. Go check out Buster's Pizza. Buster'sPizza.ca if you're looking for a location. Guarantee there's one near you. As I do every week, for Ask the Idiots, I've come up with a little list of questions. The boys haven't seen them. I'm just going to get their takes here on the fly, and then I'll wrap it up with my own thoughts on it. Who's first on my screen? Tyler Remchuk. First question, Ask the Idiots for Buster's Pizza. How much stock do you put in preseason results? So let's go like on a scale of 1 to 10 here. And I will say that in these early games, it is about a 3.5. And now we're 3 games in. We're kind of into the middle stretch here. So I'll say these next 3 games, it gets put up to like a 5. And then in the last couple of games, it's like a 7. So it's kind of like a moving scale. At first, you're playing AHL competition. The lines are usually jumbled. But as we keep getting towards the end here, you get stiffer competition. You're starting to get some lines set. There's some cuts have been made. As it gets going, I'll take it more seriously. Right now, I'm somewhere between a 3.5 and a 5. Zach Lang, you're next up on my screen. How much stock do you put in preseason results? Scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, I agree with Tyler. I think especially early on, not a whole lot. It's middling competition against middling competition. I would argue that right about now is when things are going to start ratcheting it up. I'd say right now we're looking at about an 8 or a 9 in terms of the seriousness here. After the game Wednesday night, head coach Dave Tippett said that Saturday was their mark for, quote, get sharp mode. So that's when we're really going to start to see what I imagine are closer to game day lines. We've seen some more trimming of the camp rosters. I imagine there'll probably be another set of cuts after tonight's game here. And then we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is about the time when things are going to start getting a little hot and heavy.
Rick, stock and preseason results.
I think you got to take it with a grain of salt. It's going to be different for different players. I see some of the veterans, you're not going to care too much. And then some of the younger players, you're going to expect a lot more. I think you guys kind of nailed it on the head. It doesn't really mean a ton overall at the beginning because there are a lot of guys there who aren't going to be there around games 6 and 7 and 8. But I think you're always expecting them to put out the proper effort. So I don't think you want to take it too lightly, but I'm not taking I'm not getting overly jacked up because of the first 2 games, or too mad because of the last game.
I'm with everybody. I'm going to go a solid 4 out of 10 for preseason results. Again, remember, Jesse Joensuu. You don't even know who that name is. I encourage you to Google it. That brings me to my next question. I'm going to reverse the order. Rick, I'm starting with you. How real is Brendan Perlini?
Oh, I don't know. He's not going to be. He's a 4th line player, I think, at best. If he can sneak up into the 3rd line, that might be playing a little above his weight class. But I think if you keep him on the 4th line and that group of 5 forwards there, those 3 and the two healthy scratches, that's kind of where he fits in.
I'll jump in here just because I'm selfish. I'm going to say Brendan Perlini could be a fourth liner with some skill. Love to see that. Love to have a guy that can chip in some goals down on the fourth line. I think that's where he's at. He's not going to be anything above that. Zach, you're next up. How real is Brendan Perlini?
I don't know. It's yet to be seen. I mean, I was excited about the signing. I liked the signing from the get-go. Obviously, he's shown well. It's nice that he's doing this production that he's had with guys like Devon Shore that he'd probably be playing with in the bottom six. So I'm on the cooler side right now, especially after the preseason games have been against, again, the weaker competition. So let's see if he gets into some games here over the next week or so and see if he can ratchet it up and keep up this production. Last word, Tyler. How real is Brendan Perlini?
How real is Brendan Perlini?
He's a real boy.
Yeah. I think he can be like a fourth line guy for them this year. I'm going to keep circling back to like it's a Tyler Benson conversation as well. Can he be trusted to kill penalties? Can he be trusted in his own end? Like, it's great he's lighting the lamp in preseason, but once we get to NHL competition, are we going to start noticing like a ton of mistakes in his game, or is he going to be able to keep this up? He's interesting. I don't know if he's legit and for real yet, but he's making it interesting. And I didn't think we'd be talking about Brendan Perlini this much. So in a way, he's already won.
For busterspizza.ca, we are working through Ask the Idiots. Which Oilers prospect are you most excited about, Tyler?
Kind of want to say Xavier Bourgault, actually. We got a chance to see him in that one preseason game. He ended up scoring. He skates well. He's a first round talent. I mean, he's obviously not going to factor into things this year, but you never know what the future holds. And getting a chance to really fix your eyes on a first round pick for the first time is always exciting. So I'm going to go Xavier Bourgault.
Zach, most exciting prospect for you, my friend?
Yeah, I'll agree with that, but I'll also throw another one in there too. On Bourgault, I was a guest on a podcast after the game a couple nights ago. And I kind of said about Bourgault, it's kind of hilarious to look at it because when he was drafted by the Oilers, you guys all remember the outrage and the reaction and the, oh my God, how could the Oilers have drafted this guy? But hey, look at what he's actually done in a brief showing in the preseason. He's actually showing he could be a decent prospect and a decent player. And, the overreaction machine turns here in Edmonton quite a bit. So obviously excited about him, but I think another one that I'm really excited for is Philip Broberg this year. He looks a lot bigger on the ice than I realized. And he looked pretty good. He was skating really well in the preseason here so far. So I'm going to go with Broberg because it's going to be his first real year in North America, and he's going to be a big prospect for the Oilers down the road.
I agree with Broberg in the sense that he didn't play a lot last year in the Swedish league, but now he's under team control with the Condors. He is going to play a ton. It's going to be an interesting year for Broberg. Rick, most exciting prospect to you?
You guys nailed a couple good ones there, but I'm going to stick with Konovalov. I think we've always wanted that goaltender, and I think he's proven to be in the right, proven to be given the amount of potential that he's been given. He's done everything he can so far. He's got to keep moving. We'll see what he does this season.
I was going to say Xavier Bourgault, but I'll change things up a little bit because everybody's saying it. So I'm going to say Raphael Lavoie. Last year with the Condors, he played 19 games, had 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points. I'm going to see what he does in a full year with the Condors. He has got an NHL sized body. He's a big kid. He can shoot. He's got the potential to be a top 6, middle 6 kind of player if he continues to develop. So I'm going to go ahead and say Raphael Lavoie gets my vote. Next up, Tyler, I'm going to start with Zach this time. John Scott was saying that Cody Ceci is a problem on defense for the Oilers. Do you agree with John Scott that Cody Ceci could be a problem? Zachary?
I absolutely agree that Cody Ceci could be a problem. He got turnstiled against Seattle against Winnipeg on their 4th goal by a prospect. That was not a good look. Granted, yes, it's preseason. Yes, it's early, but this is something we've seen in Cody Ceci's past at every level that he's played at for every team, whether it was Toronto, whether it was for Pittsburgh, whether it was for Ottawa initially. I'm a Cody Ceci fan. I want to believe in Cody Ceci and that he can be a good player for the Edmonton Oilers. But at the end of the day, the Oilers signed him to a pretty significant contract. And there's a lot of expectations on him. And honestly, I think it'll be sooner rather than later before Cody Ceci is a third pairing defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers on the right side.
Tyler, you worried about Cody Ceci?
Yeah, I am, just because he's a guy who's had an up and down NHL career, and I understand he's only 27 years old, but they gave him 4 years, right? That leaves me nervous. If he gets off to a bad start, we know the way this fan base can be. Looking back at guys like Chris Russell and such, he needs to get off to a good start and win this fan base over early, or else it could be a long 4 years with Cody Ceci here around.
Rick, thoughts on Cody Ceci?
Yeah, I mean, you can be nervous about every player, right? I'm not going to. I'm not taking too much extra worry just because of a bad game here and there in the preseason. It's going to matter from game 1 on October 13th going forward. We'll judge them based on that. The contract does scare me. Obviously, a player like that, we need him to be a 2-3 type of defenseman, right? I do believe Bouchard's going to rise above him rather quickly. And yeah, so we need him to be a quality defenseman where we have him playing, and that's what you want. But yeah, there's always going to be some worry.
I will say, I just want to add one other quick thing into on CC and to Tyson Barrie to an extent too. The Oilers actually did a pretty decent job on these contracts. Yeah, the term and the length is a little bit higher than you'd probably want them to be, but they have no signing bonuses in either of the deals, and that makes the contracts actually fairly buyout friendly down the road as well. So, if we're looking 2 years from now and Cody Ceci is really struggling and the Oilers can't find a move for him, like to a trade to another team, then that's an option that the Oilers could go as well.
Evan Bouchard, we need you to develop, please, and thank you. First pairing defenseman. If you could just turn into that, that'd be nice. Sticking with Evan Bouchard, career high of 2 goals. He hasn't played a whole lot. How many goals do you think Evan Bouchard gets in 2021-22, Tyler?
I will say he scores 8 times. And if I was actually setting it over under, I think I would have it around 8.5. He'll get a little bit of power play time. I think they might even bring, and he might be the guy that they eventually, Barrie gets a minute, Bouchard gets a minute. And the other thing is he loves throwing pucks on net, right? Like in 14 games last year, he had 38 shots on goal. Just with that volume, eventually some of them are going to find the back of the net. So I'll say 8 goals for Bouchard.
I love the way he walks the line too and just lobs wristers through traffic. I think that's going to be, because he's got a heavy shot too. I think those are going to get past NHL goaltenders here at some point. Zach, how many goals for Evan Bouchard?
Well, that's an interesting line of 8. I want to take the over because I think that life's too short to bet the under on anything. But yeah, I think the 8's a pretty solid number. Honestly, I could see him around there. I think he could get some more power play time than people are expecting here this year as well. So I'm really excited to see what Bouchard can do. And everything we've heard from him has been great so far. He's obviously got the support of the team and the franchise. Dave Tippett seems to be a huge fan of his game, and going so far as to calling him an X factor player for the Oilers this year. That's pretty significant. So I'm really excited to see what happens.
Rick, how many goals for the old man Bouch?
When you first asked that question, I said 8 in my head, and then Tyler said 8. And this is why when I do fantasy football drafts, I will not say the player's name in my head that I want to draft, because I think that's all you'll be taken somehow. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to take the over 8.5, and we'll keep it simple.
I'm going to go an even 10. I'm going to say Bouch gets an even 10. It's lofty, but I think you can do it. Which team is the least improved in the Pacific Division, Zach?
Got to be Calgary, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it just, they constantly seem to be so mediocre every single year. And I don't really think any of them, the off-season moves that they've made here are really going to push them all that far forward. Blake Coleman, yeah, he's a good player. I like him as a player for sure. Big contract, right? It's a lot of money for a guy who is still rather unproven in the NHL. On the back end, they lose Giordano. That's a huge loss for them. And they replace him with Nikita Zadorov and Eric Goodbranson on the third pair. Man, I don't think Calgary did a whole heck of a lot to improve their roster here this offseason.
Rick, who's the least improved team in the Pacific Division?
This is going to sound weird because they're probably going to come in second, but I'm going with Vegas. I just don't think they've improved their team really at all in the offseason. I don't think they've taken very many swings. They lost a goaltender. They've gotten older. It's the world against us that they've been living off of for the first couple of years of their career, of the organization's career there is kind of gone. So I'm going to say the Vegas Knights.
Tyler?
I actually love the pick of the Vegas Golden Knights. I have not been shy to shit on them, but I'm going to go with the team that actually didn't do anything in the entire offseason, and that's the Anaheim Ducks. Like, they literally didn't do anything. They didn't was Nick Delorier there last year? He might be the only guy who maybe they added. Other than that, they are running back the same defense. They are running back John Gibson and Anthony Stolars between the pipes. Remember Anthony Stolars? And their forward group's the exact same. And like, I get that they'll have, a young guy like Zegras, and they got a guy like Max Comtois as well. But for the most part, they're just bringing back the same mediocre team as last year. And I don't get it. The LA Kings made some big strides. They got a lot better. San Jose didn't really do anything either. Like, there's a lot of teams in the Pacific that I'm looking at and going, boy, you really didn't operate with a lot of urgency over this last offseason, but the Ducks are going to be my answer.
I'll say Calgary because fuck Calgary. Moving along, Buster's Pizza, Ask the Idiots. A couple more questions here, boys. Let's wrap it up. Sticking with Calgary. Tyler, do you think the Flames make the playoffs?
Oh man, I have them right on the cut line. I'm going to say they don't. I'm going to say the LA Kings get in over them.
Zach, do the Flames make the playoffs?
Nope.
Rick?
Nope, man. Put my money where my mouth is.
Oh, you're betting on it. I like that. I'm going to say yes, they'll get into the third spot in the Pacific because I think Jacob Markstrom will have a better year, and I think that'll probably carry them more than anything else in that they did this year. Last question. Ask the Idiots for busterspizza.ca. Outside of the Oilers, which team are you excited to watch or at least keep an eye on? Tyler?
I'm excited to see what the New York Rangers get up to this year. I think Shesterkin, I'm always going to butcher that. He's got the numbers, man. I think this guy could be in the Vezina conversation this year if he takes another step forward. That's how good I think he could be. Their blue line, they have the reigning Norris Trophy winner in Adam Fox up front. Lafreniere, Kako, maybe they take a step forward as well. They got Mika Zibanejad still kicking around. Artemi Panarin, obviously. I think the Rangers could be really good this year, and I'm excited to see how they compete in that division because that's a tough division.
I'll jump in behind Tyler. I'm excited to watch Colorado. I just think the way they're built, the skill they have, they've got some really good players on the Avalanche. So I'm looking forward to checking out a bunch of Avalanche games this year. Zach, who are you keeping an eye on this year?
Yeah, Colorado. That's going to be a fun one to watch. I think another interesting team, as always, is going to be Carolina. They've made some really interesting moves this offseason here. Obviously, they brought in, former Edmonton Oilers Ethan Bear, and they also made the big move bringing in Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I think it's really going to be interesting to see what they're able to put together this year and if they can continue off of what was a really good season for them last year.
2 new goalies for them, and they lost Dougie Hamilton as well. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is. Like it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. Like the Hamilton loss, I think might be a little bit more significant than they kind of are expecting it to be. And the goalie change, that's going to be big too. Like they gave up Nedeljkovic for literally nothing, which was one of the strangest moves of the entire offseason. They're going to be an interesting one to watch.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that Kotkaniemi, obviously the offer sheet happened with Montreal. I'm just kidding. He got paid a lot of money for the player he is at this point. I'm looking forward to watching that one. Rick, team that you're interested in keeping an eye on as the season goes on.
Oh, well, you know what? I like to keep an eye on some of the old Oilers. I know we have a friend out in Buffalo and we have a friend out in Chicago now, so I'll definitely keep an eye on those 2 teams. But in terms of watching an actual team outside, of everybody says Colorado, I've always had a thing for I've never really hated Boston that much. I can't stand any other sports team in that city, but the Bruins, for some reason, I don't have a hate on for them as much as everybody else. So, and then adding Taylor Hall back there, hopefully I'd like to see him kind of bounce back to where he should be, where we kind of think he would be. And yeah, so they're kind of fun. That's probably where I'm going, Boston.
For busterspizza.ca, there's this week's version of Ask the Idiots. If you have a question, if you want to ask the boys a question, hit me up. Send me a DM on Twitter at JSBMBagMilk or on Instagram at Hi, my name is Bagmilk. The reason I say that, I don't want the boys to see the questions. That's how it works. I just throw these at them. I get their in the moment takes. Ask the Idiots for busterspizza.ca. Before we get to the hot and cold performers of the week, I just want to talk to Tyler real quick. I want to give a plug to Blue Jays Nation Radio. Jays have a handful of games left, a few games closing in on that last wild card spot. It's tight, Tyler. Tell us about the Jays.
3 games to go against the bottom feeder Baltimore Orioles. If the Jays sweep the Orioles, they need both Seattle and Boston to lose one of their final 3. Mariners are playing LA, the Angels, and Boston is playing the Nationals in Washington. So they have to play National League rules as well. No DH for Boston. It's possible.
Yankees lose all 3.
Or the Yankees could lose all 3.
It fits into that one too. Into that one.
If the Yankees lose all 3, the Jays go 3-0, and the Red Sox and Mariners each go 2-1. I think at that point we would be in a scenario where there's like a fucked up 4 or 5 way, or there'd be a 4-way tie for the final 2 playoff spots. It'd be great. But even the scenario where the Yankees clinch the first wildcard spot, and then we'd have a 3-way playoff between the Jays, Mariners, and Red Sox, which would mean the Jays in that sense would probably have to win 1, 2, 3 consecutive sort of winning your in games, single game knockout. It's going to be wild, man. Major League Baseball, it doesn't happen every year, but once every couple of years, you get this scenario where there's like a handful of teams all competing right up until the last weekend. And it's fucking awesome. Big game baseball is so much fun. I was talking about this on Real Life. When there's a big game hockey, like when the Oilers are playing in the playoffs, I turtle. I sit back in my couch. I got kind of the jersey and hoodie up over the face, and I don't move. Big game baseball, I'm pacing. I'm like walking around my house. I cannot sit still. It's nerve-wracking. Every pitch, you don't know what's going to happen. I love it. I'm very excited for this weekend. Go Jays.
As a big bandwagon guy, I've been watching a lot of Jays games over the last 2-3 months. I'd say it's exciting. It's fun to come down to the wire and see them this close. Zach, before we end with the plug for Blue Jays Nation Radio, you've been a big Jays guy all season. You're getting into it too. What are your thoughts on just how these last couple of weeks even have played out?
Yeah, it's been great. It's exciting to watch, honestly. And this is really the first year that I've really followed Blue Jays baseball. So it's been great to see them going on a run here. It's been great to see the energy at Rogers Center. It's been great to see Coombe and Tyler getting to some games out there as well. So it's been an absolute blast. And Bouchard, man, like it's been putting the team on his back here in the last week or two. It's been absolutely awesome to see.
Tyler, I'll wrap it up before I ask you when you guys record Blue Jays Nation Radio. Maybe I'll just check in on your co-host. I was talking to him this morning in our Slack channel that Zach and I have with him. Coombsy's not feeling so great today. So maybe a little pep talk is exactly what he needs about the Jays. But when do you guys record? How often does it come up?
At the end of every single series. So as soon as that series with Baltimore is done, Coombsy and I will have a new episode of Blue Jays Nation Radio. Hopefully we get to do a few more, and we get to do a bunch of really, really good ones here as they head through all these single knockout games.
So Sunday night is coming out. Like it's either going to be through the moon happy or, got the shovel and I'm heading out to the field to dig a hole in the ground sad. So
yeah,
is that what
it might come out Monday? Night? It might come out Monday, knowing how Coombsy and I both like to nervous drink when we watch this team. So we'll see.
So you want to do this podcast sober, is what you're saying. You don't want to have like the joy or the sadness of Sunday roll into it. You want to give it a little night to sleep.
Yeah, maybe that might be best, especially if it doesn't go well.
You know what though? An emergency podcast, if things go well, that could be fun.
Fair.
It'd be fun. Again, if you are listening to this and you're following along with the Jays, check out Blue Jays Nation Radio and maybe give Coombsy a showing of support on Twitter, because my man was not feeling so great after yesterday's loss against the Yankees. All right, let's wrap up this podcast with our hot and cold performers. First, I got to tell you about Deuce Vodka. If you go to deucevodka.com, there you see a handsome picture of Brett Kissel. Right there. There he is, front and center. Hold a bottle of Deuce Vodka, and you too can take some handsome pictures holding a bottle of Deuce Vodka. If you click on the little store locator on the right side of the screen, that'll show you everywhere you can buy it, provided that you're of legal drinking age and enjoy responsibly. Deuce Vodka. It's a weekend. Make yourself a Caesar Sunday. Maybe you super beer yourself. I don't know. Ooh, is that a responsible thing to say? I don't know. Well, maybe have one of those and get an Uber. All right. Deuce Vodka, as we do every week, we start with our cold performers of the week. Tyler, get your buttons ready. I'm looking at Rick up first on my screen, so I will start with him. Rick, your Deuce Vodka cold performer of the week.
Well, I think this one's an easy one. I think everybody would be jumping on board with it, but it's the Ukrainian Hockey League. Everything over there with that serious Yeah, like the incident, they don't need to speak about it. I think everybody knows it. I don't know how it gets fixed. I don't know who can come in and kibosh this and make it an actual penalty. Somebody needs to, but everybody in charge of that ruling, and I don't care if it fits the rule book says, but that doesn't matter at this point. The penalty he got was absolutely ridiculous. Everybody involved here should be ashamed of themselves.
That's a joke. That's an absolute joke is what it is. Not much more you can really say. It was just gross. The incident was gross. The decision was gross and awful. Just an awful showing for hockey from the Ukrainian league. Just fucking embarrassing, to be honest. Zach, you're next up. Deuce Vodka, cold performer of the week.
It's going to be Duncan Keith. Nobody cares that you didn't want to get the vaccine, Duncan. So let's just go play some hockey and let's move on from this story.
Oh, that's cold.
Tyler Gramchuk, Deuce Vodka, cold performer of the week.
I'm going right back to what Rick said, and I'm going to put this one, I'm going to go a couple different ways with it. One on the double IHF, and I think they could have been much more strict in handing down a ban themselves here. And they have a new president for really the first time in my life at the double IHF. And he had a chance to really set a tone here and say racism will not be accepted in our sport. And he totally dropped the ball. And also the Ukrainian league fired one of its general managers, or the league's general manager of operations, and basically told him, well, if the game wasn't on TV, there'd be no problem. All of this has been sick and just an absolute fucking joke. So I'm going back to this sound again.
That's a joke. That's an absolute joke is what it is. Deuce Vodka, cold performer of the week. I'm just going to tag along with Tyler and Rick. Just awful in every respect from the Ukrainian league. Just the dude shouldn't be playing anymore.
Yeah.
That's it. And the fact that he's got a slap on the wrist, like even the suspension was stupid. It was 3 games plus 10, or he could pay a fine and get out of it. And I know there's some clarification on how that actually worked. Everything about it was stupid. The Ukrainian league should be embarrassed. Like Tyler said, the IIHF, they could have made an example of this so that it never happens again. And the fact that they did not is shameful and embarrassing. And it's just gross. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke is what it is. All right, let's finish up with some positives. Deuce Vodka, hot performer of the week. Let's finish the podcast off with some highlights. I'm going to go first. I'm selfish. My Deuce Vodka, hot performer of the week is Nation Dan. He's not here today. But he's in Vegas. He didn't tell a soul, by the way, that he was going down there to get married. We knew he was going to Vegas on a little vacay with his missus. Did not know the guy was getting married. So I'm endlessly happy for Dan and Mandy. They're a great couple. They're great people. And I was thrilled for him when the news came out, when they announced that they actually got married down there in Vegas. So Nation Dan, you are my hot performer of the week.
It's getting hot in here. So hot.
Love the Nelly.
He had a countdown going too on his Instagram, like a super ominous little like sneaky countdown.
You know what? He kept that one tight to his vest. Yeah. That was a surprise for everybody. And then he even had Bob Cole as part of the video to do the announcement. Like, what?
Yeah, he did some good work there.
You did some real good work there. So shout out to Dan. Tyler, you're next up. Deuce Vodka, hot performer of the week.
We got a new teammate here at Oilers Nation, and today was her first official day. So I want to give some love to Kennedy, who's going to be our new video producer. If you've been paying attention to Daily Faceoff, there have been a bunch of really good announcements to announce some of the new talent joining the team there. Kennedy killed every single one of those videos. Her first official day is today. So welcome to the team, Kennedy.
Put some respect on my name.
Go follow her on Twitter. You know what? Kennedy is the best. Not only will she be doing some video work for us, she's also going to be doing graphic design for us as well. Go check her out on Twitter at Kennedy Strash. STRASH. Follow her on Twitter. She's a great follow. Loves the Oilers. Super talented. Excited to have her on the team.
Isn't it just Kennedy's Trash? Because that's definitely not her last name, right?
Kennedy's Trash. Wow. I know that's not her last name. I didn't know what it was.
I was going to ask that. I thought we had another Dangerous Wade situation going on here with me.
That's exactly a Dangerous Wade situation. I know that's not her last name. I wasn't going to say her last name on the podcast, but I was just like, oh, that makes way more sense. You know what? When you mash them together, this is a Dangerous Wade situation. Kennedy's Trash. Tyler, hit me up with a cold performer button just because I can't read. So my ability to read is another cold performer of the week.
I'm upset.
Well, I'm not upset. I'm dumb. Okay. So Kennedy, yes. Kennedy's Trash. Strash. I was legitimately reading it, Kennedy Strash. I'm like, well, I don't know what that means, but all right. Zach, you're next up. Deuce Vodka, hot performer of the week.
My hot performer of the week is going to be the blue skies in Edmonton today. It has been absolutely gorgeous here this last couple of weeks. I'm a big fall guy, and as we all know, it is soup season, folks, and it is my favorite time of the year.
I like this right here.
Always love soup season. I am a year-round soup guy, just like I know Zach is. Rick, you're next up. Deuce Vodka, hot performer of the week.
First of all, I'd like to say, I don't want to take any comments, but soup is overrated. But my hot performer.
Get like Rick off the podcast.
You have two beverages for dinner? Come on.
Two beverages.
Hot performer is going to whoever made the decision to bring the Canadian men's national team to Edmonton in November to play two teams from Central America, I believe it is, Mexico, and I'm not sure what the other team was. But to see Alfonso come home, get to see that team come play in Edmonton with our weather in November, I think it's great for the city. I think it's great for the country, and I'm very excited. I'm definitely going to try and help out for one of those games.
Pour it on!
Speaking of that Jack Michaels drop, I was just happy to hear Jack calling a game again the other day. It makes me happy, you know?
Nature is healing.
It's the only downfall of going to the game.
Yeah, you don't get to hear Jack. All right, there you have it. So for all of us here on the podcast, I'm Bag Milk, Tyler Remchuk, Zach Lang, and Rick. We are thanking you for being here with us again on your Friday. We also want to thank our friends at DoorDash, Sherwood Ford, Cornerstone Insurance, Deuce Vodka, and Buster's Pizza for making all of this possible. And most importantly, Kennedy's Trash on Twitter. Kennedy's Trash on Twitter. Go follow her. She's great. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for welcoming us into your lives. Please tell a friend, coworker, cousin, uncle, auntie, whatever. Oilers Nation Radio, new episodes come up every Friday. Whenever you listen, we thank you. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ON Radio Podcast. Leave reviews. Didn't get to any this week, but I will catch up next week. I promise. That's episode 160 of Oilers Nation Radio. Have a great weekend, everybody. Go follow Kennedy's Trash.
Shout out Nation Dan for getting married.
Thanks for listening to Oilers Nation Radio, delivered by DoorDash. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram.